Good morning. Today we are going to start with the first chapter, that is the living world. Now, when the word living comes to your mind, what do you understand? If I'll tell you to define living, what does that mean? Now there are certain characteristics of a living organism which come to our mind when we are to define the word living. So we'll focus on these characteristics. So what is living? If we were to define this, certain characteristics will come in our mind. These characteristics can be growth, reproduction, metabolism, consciousness, etc. So which all characteristics will be the defining feature of a living organism, or all these characteristics need to be present in the organism to so that we can say that this living organism, this organism is living. So we'll start with the first characteristics, that is growth. Now if we were to define growth, we know that growth is nothing but increase in cell mass and increase in cell number. So both these, increase in cell mass and increase in cell number, comes under growth. We all know that living organisms have a specific growth. When we talk about plants, plants have meristematic tissues, and these tissues will continue the cell division and growth will occur in the whole lifespan of plants. But when we talk about animals, the growth in number and cell mass is restricted to a certain age. After that, cell division occurs. The cell division is the necessary means to increase the cell number. Cell division occur, but it will occur only to replace the lost cells. Okay, when we talk about unicellular organism, like binary fission is nothing but cell division. So these organisms also grow by the means of cell division, and that comes under growth. But when we see these mountains, sand mounds, boulders, this is also a large amount of sand is accumulated, so we'll say that this is a sand mound. So we see here that there is a increase in mass. Okay, when we talk about living organism, we can see in mountains there is accumulation of rocks, sand. In sand mounds there is accumulation of sand. So this is also increase in the mass. Okay, so now we cannot say alone that growth will be the defining feature for an organism to be living. So the next characteristics we take is reproduction. All living organism reproduce. Living organism is reproduction. All the living organism reproduce. Reproduction is essential to maintain the organism in this environment, to maintain the species of the organism in this environment. If they don't reproduce, they will become extinct. Okay, so reproduction occurs both in unicellular and multicellular organism. When we talk about unicellular organism, the body design is very simple, so they reproduce by asexual means. And when we talk about complex organisms like mammals, they reproduce with the help of sexual means, that is sexual reproduction. In both the reproduction are the characteristics to increase the number of organism in the environment. Okay, but when we talk about certain organisms like mule, infertile couples, they are not able to reproduce. Okay, but they are living. So reproduction alone cannot be the defining feature for living. Okay, now the third characteristic is cellular growth. Cellular growth or cellular organization. Now we know that our bodies our body is made up of cell, then tissue, then organ system, then the whole organism. This body, in this body there are various chemical reactions occurring between the cells which are doing the whole metabolism of our body. Metabolism is nothing but, when we talk about metabolism, this is nothing but anabolism plus catabolism. Anabolism is all the synthetic chemical reactions occurring in our body which are producing something, and catabolism is all the activities which are breaking something. So our body is a machinery in which both these activities are occurring, and that is called the metabolism of the body. So these are nothing but the chemical reaction. So a living organism needs these activities to maintain the living state of that body. Okay, so here we can say that the cellular organization or the metabolism is the characteristics, defining characteristics for a living organism. Now we come to the fourth characteristics, that is conscious, or you can say that knowledge of self, that is consciousness. We know that what we have to do next. Okay, we are able to respond according to the environmental stress. Okay, all the organism, if we see a certain danger, will run somewhere. Okay, so knowledge of self, that is consciousness, is the defining feature for a living organism. This is not seen in generally non-living things, but if you are to view a person who is in coma, okay, what you will say? You will say that that organism is brain dead. Okay, that he or she is not aware of the happenings in the surrounding. So when we say that these are the characteristics of living, only one characteristics will not count for an organism to say that the organism is living. All these characteristics should be present in a living organism so that we can say that that particular organism is living. And this all occurs at the basic level where cellular messages are there, and these cellular organization will break and make things which will help in the building of tissue, which will help in the building of organ system, and all the things which are occurring in these at the cellular level will help in the working of the body. So we'll consider metabolism and knowledge of self, that is consciousness, as a defining feature, but in a living organism all these characteristics should be present. And we know that biology is nothing but the science of living, that is bio is what? Bio is living. Okay, and logy is the study. So biology is the study of life on earth. Okay, biodiversity. Biodiversity. Now we know that millions of plants and animals are present on this beautiful planet, that is Earth. Now we know plants and animals by their local names. Okay, if we move to a place, then other place, then other place, we will see that the same organism is having many names. So if I and you are about to talk about a common plant or animal, will not be able to talk about that, because for me I am having that specific local name, and for you, you are having that specific common name. Like in Hindi we call onion as pyaz, but in Gujarati they call pyaz as kanda. So this onion is having two different local names. So if we are to study about these organisms and plants, it will be very difficult if we follow only the local names. Now it's very necessary to assign the organism a specific name based on the identification characteristics of that organism. So it is important to give a name. Suppose this is an A organism, so it is very important to name this organism by a specific means, so that it can be when we take the name of that organism, you and I both are visualizing the organism as one. Okay, so naming organism by a specific procedure which will be same all over the world is called nomenclature. It is called what? Nomenclature. For nomenclature, identification characteristics are very important. What? Identification is very important. This will based on the, if we talk about plant, this will be based on the rooting system, the type of leaves, the type of branch, the type of flowers. Okay, so for nomenclature, identification is very important, and nomenclature is like naming this A organism, and this organism name will be same all over the world. Now this naming are done by two association where they are giving the scientific name. One is the ICBN and the other is ICZN. This is the International Center of Botanical Nomenclature, and this is International Center of Zoological Nomenclature. Okay. So there is a specific procedure of assigning a scientific name to an organism, so that the organism is named all over the world by the same name, and so it becomes very easy to understand the characteristics of an organism, and it is very easy to make the study of the organism, and it's very easy to name the organisms which are being discovered while we are talking, and that will be known all over the world. So that is done by a specific procedure that is called binomial nomenclature. Nomenclature is nothing but naming of an organism. Now as the name suggests, bi means two names, so it will have two names, that is, one is the genus and the other is the specific epithet, that is the species name. Okay, so this binomial nomenclature was designed by the scientist Carolus Linnaeus. This binomial nomenclature was designed by the scientist Carolus Linnaeus. This binomial nomenclature has certain rules, and we'll discuss it. Like, the first rule is biological names are generally in Latin and written in italics. Okay, the origin of these biological name is Latin, and they are written in italics as to show their Latin origin. Now we take example of mango. So the scientific name of mango is Magnifera indica. So first is biological names are generally in Latin. Okay, the origin is Latin and they are written in italics. So when you write it, you have to write in italics. The second is the first word is the genus name. This is the genus name. And the second is the specific epithet. We are talking what? We are talking about word. Okay. Third point is when we write it on paper, we have to underline it. Like we have to underline it separately. So when I wrote Magnifera Indica on board, or when I have to write this Magnifera Indica on paper, I have to underline it separately like this. Okay, there should not be a continuous line like this. Magnifera I have to underline separately and Indica separately. Or when this name, scientific name of any organism is printed, it should be printed in italics. Okay. Now the first word, first letter of the genus name should be capital. Now you can see here the word first letter of the genus is capital. Okay, and in the specific epithet, the first letter of the word should be not capital. It should be in small letter. Okay. So the first word is, the biological names are of Latin origin. The first word is the genus name. The second one is specific epithet. The third rule is, when they are written on paper, they have to be underlined separately like Magnifera and Indica. And the last point is, the first word of the genus name should be in capital, and the first word of the species name is with a small letter, that is I. Okay, so this is binomial nomenclature which was given by Carolus Linnaeus.